On Thanksgiving evening, November 23, 2006, while families across America were settling into their post-dinner contentment, a man sat motionless in the sterile waiting area outside the emergency room at Seattle Grace Medical Center in Washington State. His face was a portrait of anguish and despair. The man's name was Dr. Marcus Thornton, and his eyes remained fixed on those double doors because somewhere beyond them, fighting for her life on a hospital bed, was his beloved wife, Catherine. The moment he received word that his daughter was in critical condition, Catherine's father, Dr. Robert Harrison, abandoned his Thanksgiving guests and raced to the hospital. As a father, there was no time for tears or paralysis. Instead, drawing upon decades of accumulated medical expertise and professional connections, he immediately contacted a former colleague who now served as chief of surgery at Seattle Grace, requesting his personal involvement in Catherine's emergency treatment. For 2 agonizing hours, the medical team fought tirelessly, employing every intervention in their considerable arsenal. But despite their heroic efforts, they could not save Catherine Harrison Thornton. She was gone. Before his retirement just 18 months earlier, Dr. Harrison had been one of the Pacific Northwest's most respected cardiac surgeons, a man who had saved countless lives throughout his distinguished career. He had brought hope and healing to hundreds of families. Yet now, in the cruelest twist imaginable, he stood helpless as his own daughter slipped away before his eyes. The pain that consumed this father's heart was beyond articulation. As for his son-in-law, Dr. Marcus Thornton, he appeared equally devastated. When the news of Catherine's death reached him, he seemed to lose all composure. He rushed to her bedside, collapsing over her body, his sobs echoing through the corridors. In his apparent grief, he even attempted to harm himself, trying to slam his head against the wall as if life without his wife was unbearable. Fortunately, nearby staff members restrained him in time. This heartbreaking display moved everyone present. They witnessed what seemed to be the profound bond between this young couple, and their hearts ached for this tragic loss. Moreover, Marcus fell to his knees before his in-laws, his voice breaking as he said, "You trusted me with Catherine. I failed to protect her. I'm so sorry. From this day forward, I'll be the son you deserve." Watching his son-in-law's complete breakdown, Dr. Harrison felt a deep pang of sympathy. Clearly, Marcus had loved Catherine deeply, and losing her had shattered him. However, beneath his own overwhelming grief, something else gnawed at the experienced physician's mind. His decades in medicine had given him an instinct for the unusual, the suspicious, the not quite right. And his daughter's death triggered every alarm bell in his professional consciousness. From childhood through adulthood, Catherine had been exceptionally healthy. She rarely got sick, almost never visited doctors, and had no history of serious medical conditions. Yet everything changed approximately 2 years ago. From that point forward, she began experiencing episodes of dizziness, blurred vision, chest tightness, and difficulty breathing. Initially, these symptoms appeared briefly before disappearing. But over time, they increased in frequency and intensity, eventually presenting as classic cardiovascular disease markers. Worried about her deteriorating health, Catherine had consulted numerous specialists and undergone extensive testing. Strangely, despite thorough examinations, doctors could never identify the root cause of her symptoms. When Dr. Harrison was finally allowed to see his daughter one last time, his trained eye immediately began cataloging details. He noticed her pupils were completely dilated. Her entire body had turned an abnormal bluish-purple color. Her abdomen was severely distended. Most tellingly, there were traces of vomit around her mouth and on her clothing. The attending physicians informed him that Catherine had died from acute respiratory failure followed by cardiac arrest. As someone with 40 years of medical experience, Dr. Harrison knew immediately that these clinical signs did not match the profile of someone who had died from heart disease. On the contrary, every symptom pointed toward something far more sinister: poisoning. With the methodical caution of a scientist, Dr. Harrison quietly collected a sample of his daughter's vomit without anyone's knowledge. He was determined to uncover the truth behind this mysterious death, no matter where it led. Around 3 o'clock in the morning on November 24th, with the hospital still shrouded in the atmosphere of tragedy, Dr. Harrison pulled Marcus aside to a secluded corner. His voice was grave, his eyes piercing as he looked directly at his son-in-law. "We're both physicians, Marcus. We understand the human body and disease processes. I need the truth from you." His words were measured, deliberate. "From the time you finished Thanksgiving dinner until Catherine was brought here for emergency treatment, only the two of you were home. No one else. So tell me exactly what happened. How did my daughter die?" Faced with this direct confrontation, Marcus became extremely agitated. He leapt to his feet, raising both hands skyward as if calling upon God himself to bear witness. He swore emphatically that he had done nothing wrong to Catherine, that he loved his wife more than life itself and could never harm her. Seeing his son-in-law's intense reaction, his apparent genuine distress, Dr. Harrison fell silent. He didn't press further. However, deep within, his suspicions remained unquiet. To clarify the true cause of his daughter's sudden death, Dr. Harrison formally requested a complete autopsy. This proposal received immediate support from most family members present. However, when Marcus heard mention of an autopsy, something changed. His legs seemed to give way beneath him and he collapsed to the floor. In his eyes, witnesses later recalled, there was not only grief but also something else entirely, unmistakable fear. On the afternoon of November 25, 2006, as the forensic pathologists prepared their instruments for the autopsy Dr. Harrison had requested, something extraordinary happened. Marcus suddenly burst into the examination room. To everyone's shock and confusion, he threw himself to his knees before the pathologists, using his body to physically block them from approaching Catherine's body. He cried, begged, and pleaded with them not to touch his wife. The scene became chaotic as 7 or 8 people attempted to remove him, but somehow they couldn't budge him. In his escalating agitation, Marcus turned and pointed directly at his father-in-law, his voice filled with anger and accusation. "She's already dead. How can you bear to cut open your own daughter like this? Don't you love her? How can you be so heartless?" Several relatives attempted to calm Marcus with gentle reasoning. They explained that the autopsy would actually protect him. If anyone ever questioned Catherine's death in the future, the autopsy results would provide clear evidence of his innocence and help establish the facts transparently. Surprisingly, these well-intentioned words only made Marcus more agitated. His abnormal reaction caused many people present to begin questioning what they had witnessed. The autopsy was delayed for hours. It wasn't until 6 o'clock that evening, when everyone finally convinced Marcus to leave the examination room, that the forensic pathologists could begin their work. They worked meticulously and the results came quickly. On November 26, 2006, when Dr. Harrison and other family members received the official autopsy report, they felt as if lightning had struck them. The document clearly indicated that throughout Catherine's digestive system, from stomach to intestines, and especially in her blood, there were extraordinarily high levels of ketamine, a powerful anesthetic. Ketamine is a short-acting anesthetic that is colorless, odorless, and dissolves easily in liquids. In medical settings, it's used for minor surgical procedures and diagnostic interventions. However, when ingested in significant quantities, it places severe stress on the cardiovascular system. At certain dosages, it causes respiratory depression leading to heart failure and death. This anesthetic is a controlled prescription drug, unavailable at regular pharmacies. Only medical professionals have access to it. After learning the cause of his daughter's death, Dr. Harrison immediately contacted the Seattle Police Department. When they understood the situation, investigators realized this case was far more complex than it appeared. They launched an immediate investigation. According to what police discovered, Catherine had been a woman with a bright, optimistic personality. At her workplace, a non-profit environmental organization where she worked as a financial director, she was universally liked and had excellent relationships with all her colleagues. Her daily demeanor was stable, with no signs of psychological distress or mental health struggles. When Catherine's colleagues were interviewed, they recalled that just 3 days before Thanksgiving, Catherine had cheerfully asked Marcus to deliver medication to a colleague who was ill. When the couple met at the office that day, they appeared affectionate and happy together, making many people envious. Catherine had excitedly shared the family's holiday plans, mentioning that instead of the usual gift baskets for Marcus's parents, they had decided to give them gift cards, which would be more practical and appreciated. She spoke about future plans with eager, joyful eyes. All these details demonstrated that Catherine was living a normal, happy life and had absolutely no intention of ending it. Therefore, after careful consideration, police officially ruled out suicide as a possibility. Continuing their investigation, police examined all medication records from Seattle Grace Medical Center and directly interviewed the emergency room physicians who had treated Catherine. Through careful verification and cross-referencing of medical documents, they confirmed that throughout the entire emergency treatment process that evening, Catherine had not been administered any ketamine whatsoever. This finding eliminated the possibility of accidental hospital error. After systematically ruling out both suicide and medical mishap, police were left with only one logical conclusion: Catherine Harrison Thornton had been deliberately poisoned and murdered. When considering who had the easiest access to ketamine as well as the opportunity to secretly administer it to Catherine in daily life without detection, the most suspicious person was obviously her husband, Dr. Marcus Thornton. Combined with Marcus's highly unusual behavior during the autopsy process, police decided to conduct a thorough investigation of this husband. Soon enough, they found crucial evidence. First was Marcus's signature in the hospital's controlled substance dispensing log, clearly documenting that he had checked out ketamine. Additionally, police found the empty medicine vial he had discarded in the trash after poisoning his wife. After compiling and connecting all the evidence they had gathered, on the evening of December 5, 2006, Seattle police formally arrested Dr. Marcus Thornton. When they arrived, Marcus was completely unprepared. He apparently believed that Catherine's body had been cremated and all evidence destroyed, leaving him with nothing to fear. In fact, at the moment of his arrest, he was casually staying at his mistress's apartment as if nothing had happened. At the police station, Marcus initially remained silent, refusing to admit anything. However, after 14 hours facing overwhelming and undeniable evidence, he finally confessed. He was the one who had poisoned his wife, directly causing Catherine Harrison Thornton's death. Faced with this horrifying truth, Dr. Harrison felt crushing anguish and blamed himself, saying, "It's all my fault. If it weren't for me, my daughter would still be alive." So why would Dr. Marcus Thornton poison his own wife? Welcome to True Crime Files. If this story is already sending chills down your spine, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell and share. Also tell me where you are watching from in the comment section. Your support means the world to me. Marcus Thornton was born in 1975 in a working-class neighborhood of Portland, Oregon. From early childhood, his family struggled financially, and daily life was a constant battle with material hardship. Growing up in such a deprived environment shaped Marcus's distinctive personality. He became fiercely competitive, driven by an intense need to surpass others in every field. Whether in academics or any other aspect of life, he set extraordinarily high standards for himself and refused to be second best to anyone. In 1993, through relentless effort, Marcus was admitted to the University of Washington School of Medicine with exceptional grades. However, this achievement wasn't celebrated by his family. His parents felt that pursuing medicine was too difficult, too demanding, requiring too many years of study and creating enormous financial burden. They couldn't afford it and advised him to choose a more practical path. But Marcus remained absolutely firm in his decision. For him, becoming a doctor wasn't merely a career goal but a dream he had cherished since childhood. Moreover, with his competitive nature, the more his family opposed him, the more determined he became to succeed and prove everyone wrong. Throughout his medical school years, Marcus not only studied diligently but also actively participated in various extracurricular activities and leadership programs. Thanks to his enthusiasm and drive, he was consistently praised by his professors and admired by his peers. After graduating in 1997 with honors, Marcus began his surgical residency at Portland General Hospital. However, this respectable position didn't satisfy Marcus's ambitions. He didn't want to spend years climbing the traditional career ladder. Instead, he decided to pursue specialized training to accelerate his advancement. Subsequently, Marcus applied for a pediatric surgery fellowship at Seattle Children's Hospital, one of the most prestigious programs in the country. His exceptional abilities were undeniable. Just over a year later, he was accepted into the fellowship program. It was precisely at this point that Marcus met the person who would change his life. His fellowship director, Dr. Robert Harrison. At that time, Dr. Harrison was chief of pediatric cardiothoracic surgery at Seattle Children's Hospital, a renowned medical expert and also a former member of the Washington State Medical Board. For Marcus to train under him was an extraordinary opportunity. Throughout his fellowship, Marcus maintained his excellent performance from medical school. He was also active in professional organizations and medical societies. Therefore, Dr. Harrison highly valued this talented young physician. Marcus clearly understood that his mentor's recognition could completely transform his future. So he frequently took initiative to help the professor with various tasks, running errands, assisting with research projects, anything to strengthen their relationship. But even Marcus didn't expect that the professor would want to introduce him to his daughter. In the eyes of outsiders, Dr. Harrison was a man with a stellar career and a wonderful life. But every family has its complications, and he had concerns that weighed heavily on his mind. He had two daughters, Catherine and Rebecca. But neither of them had pursued medicine. When he thought about how he had devoted his entire life to the medical profession but would have no one to carry on his legacy after retirement, he felt deep regret. However, compared to this concern, what worried him even more was the romantic situation of his eldest daughter, Catherine. After graduating from college with a degree in nonprofit management, Catherine became a financial director at an environmental advocacy organization. She had a somewhat reserved personality and wasn't particularly interested in dating. So even though she was approaching 28 years old, she still hadn't found a serious partner, much less married. As time passed, the aging father became increasingly concerned about this. Marcus's appearance gave him new hope. A talented young physician like Marcus, with exceptional skills, excellent interpersonal abilities and genuine passion for medicine, such a person was rare. If he could become his son-in-law, not only would his daughter marry a good man, but his professional legacy would also have a successor. It would be perfect. Therefore, Dr. Harrison inquired about Marcus's romantic situation. If he already had a girlfriend, the matter would have to be dropped. But after some hesitation, Marcus indicated that he didn't currently have anyone serious in his life. So Dr. Harrison began his plan to introduce his daughter Catherine to his protégé. What surprised him was that Catherine and Marcus seemed to genuinely connect. Not long after meeting, they began dating. By the summer of 1999, before friends and family as witnesses, they were married in a beautiful ceremony overlooking Puget Sound. At the wedding, Marcus promised his father-in-law that he would always take care of his daughter and cherish her. Seeing the young couple he had brought together looking so happy, Dr. Harrison was deeply pleased. After Marcus completed his fellowship, thanks to his father-in-law's connections and recommendations, he secured an attending physician position at Seattle Children's Hospital. The benefits and advancement opportunities were significantly better than what he would have found elsewhere. In fact, Marcus was genuinely accomplished in his professional field. The Seattle Times on December 12, 2006 reported on a groundbreaking laparoscopic surgery performed on an infant with congenital heart defects at Seattle Children's Hospital. This was one of the first such procedures performed in the Pacific Northwest, and the patient was only 8 weeks old. The lead surgeon was none other than Dr. Marcus Thornton. This demonstrated that his surgical skills were indeed exceptional. 5 years after their marriage, Catherine gave birth to a baby girl they named Emma. In the eyes of many, Marcus was living the American dream. He had married the professor's daughter, had a seemingly happy family, a thriving career, and a bright future stretching before him. However, in the eyes of Marcus's parents, things appeared quite different. They had always felt that the marriage between their son and Catherine was a mistake. In the spring of 1999, while working at a manufacturing plant in Tacoma, Marcus's father suddenly received a letter from his son. In it, Marcus invited his parents to his upcoming wedding to Catherine. This confused his father greatly because his son's girlfriend wasn't named Catherine. It turned out that before dating Catherine, Marcus had been involved with someone else, an elementary school teacher named Jennifer. The two had been together for over 2 years and had even discussed marriage. But because Marcus wanted to secure the professor's support and rapidly advance his career, he decided to break up with Jennifer. At the wedding, Marcus's parents met Catherine for the first time. They weren't particularly pleased with their daughter-in-law because Marcus's former girlfriend had been tall and strikingly beautiful, while Catherine had a more ordinary appearance and was quite petite. Marcus was someone who maintained an impeccable public image, and many people had favorable impressions of him. It was said that during his residency, when a colleague suddenly collapsed from exhaustion, Marcus immediately carried his friend to the emergency room, not caring that he himself was scheduled for surgery. At Seattle Children's Hospital, Marcus was highly regarded by many patients' families who felt he possessed excellent skills but remained remarkably humble. Whenever Catherine's colleagues had health concerns, they would seek Marcus's advice, and he would proactively offer to help. Therefore, everyone had a very positive impression of him. A colleague who had worked with Catherine for 6 years always thought the couple was perfectly matched. The husband had a successful career and genuinely seemed to care about others. Meanwhile, Catherine had just been promoted to senior financial director that July. Not only that, Marcus's personality appeared gentle and easygoing, and he never seemed to initiate arguments with anyone. 3 days before Thanksgiving, Marcus had come to Catherine's office to deliver medication to one of her colleagues. Another colleague had just returned from a conference with regional specialty treats, so everyone gathered to enjoy them together. Catherine playfully said to her husband, "You should feed me one of these." Marcus laughed and replied, "I already spoil you enough. You're still like a child." This scene made everyone around them feel how sweet they were together. Colleagues often said that if the organization held a vote for the model couple or the happiest family award, they would definitely choose the Thorntons. But all of this was merely a carefully constructed facade that Marcus wore in public. Marcus and Catherine didn't actually love each other the way everyone perceived. In fact, they were husband and wife in name only, without genuine marital affection. Because from the very beginning, Marcus had never truly loved Catherine. He married her solely for the professional benefits her family could provide. Marcus understood perfectly that his career had developed so rapidly entirely due to his father-in-law's support and connections. Not long after they married in 1999, Marcus's parents faced eviction from their apartment due to building renovations. Having nowhere else to go, they hoped to stay temporarily with their son until they found new housing. But in the end, they had to live in the basement apartment of Marcus and Catherine's house for 9 full months. Marcus's mother believed this arrangement wasn't her son's fault, but rather because Catherine didn't truly welcome them. She pointed out that the house had been purchased primarily with money from Catherine's family trust fund. However, Marcus's parents also admitted that after Emma was born, Catherine treated them somewhat better. Marcus's mother believed this was because the grandparents had worked hard to help care for their granddaughter. But Catherine's colleagues felt she treated her in-laws exceptionally well, perhaps even better than her own parents. Every evening after work, she would drive across town to her in-laws' home to bring them dinner. She was usually very generous with them. For Thanksgiving, she had even prepared a check for $800 specifically for them. However, Marcus's father explained that this money was mainly for household expenses. They would prepare special dishes that Catherine enjoyed. As for themselves, they ate very simply, sometimes just eating leftovers. On the other hand, Marcus's family always felt that the Harrison family looked down on their working-class background. His father gave a specific example. 2 weeks after Marcus and Catherine's wedding, Marcus's younger brother also got married. Because the family chose a slightly upscale venue for the reception, Catherine's family allegedly made critical comments and several members refused to attend. From this, we can see that in this marriage, Marcus always felt he was accommodating his wife and her family. At first he might not have been bothered, but over time the resentment grew deeper and more toxic. Additionally, with his intensely competitive personality, Marcus couldn't feel the admiration and validation he craved from Catherine. Therefore, their marital relationship became increasingly strained. They were merely playing the role of an affectionate couple in front of others. This was confirmed by those genuinely close to them. A mutual friend of the couple recalled, during the day they both worked. In the evening they'd go to Catherine's parents' house for dinner and to spend time with Emma. When they got home, Catherine would watch television or read while Marcus worked on continuing education courses for his medical certifications. The couple seemed to have nothing meaningful to discuss, so their married life just passed by in tedious routine. A close friend of Catherine's believed both of them were too concerned with maintaining appearances. Even when conflicts arose between them, they wouldn't openly address issues. This friend revealed that Catherine had once confided that if Marcus ever proposed divorce, she would immediately agree. However, this same friend also mentioned that because Catherine felt her educational background wasn't as impressive as Marcus's medical credentials, she always felt somewhat insecure. Therefore, Catherine was extremely accommodating to her husband. Moreover, she genuinely tried to be good to Marcus. For instance, when her husband started experiencing hair loss, Catherine researched remedies and special treatments, even ordering specialized products from specialists across the country. Unfortunately, Marcus was not at all moved by these gestures from Catherine. Outwardly, he maintained the appearance of a devoted husband, but in reality he had long betrayed his wife. Furthermore, he was a serial philanderer, carrying on not just with 1 or 2 women, but maintaining numerous extramarital relationships simultaneously. Marcus was known as a brilliant young physician, so there were many attractive young nurses and medical residents surrounding him at the hospital. In 2002, Marcus noticed a beautiful nurse named Ashley working in the pediatric ICU and quickly initiated an affair with her. After tasting this forbidden excitement, he continued having relationships with many other nurses, residents, and even pharmaceutical representatives. These mistresses, besides being young, attractive, and having appealing figures, more importantly made him feel desired and admired in ways Catherine never did. Actually, Catherine wasn't completely oblivious to her husband's infidelity. Once, Marcus had brought a mistress to their home while Catherine was supposedly out of town, and Catherine returned unexpectedly, nearly catching them. Afterward, Marcus explained that it was simply a colleague who had stopped by to discuss a complex case. Usually, when Marcus texted his various mistresses, he was extremely secretive about it. Therefore, Catherine definitely suspected something was wrong. But perhaps for the sake of maintaining appearances, she only confided in her younger sister about this and never mentioned it to her parents. Among his many mistresses, the woman with the closest relationship to Marcus was a physician named Dr. Vanessa Chen, who worked at a private practice in downtown Seattle, and a surgical nurse named Melissa who worked at the same hospital. Of these, he claimed to love Vanessa the most. But this woman constantly pressured him to divorce Catherine and marry her. Deep down, Marcus always believed this marriage absolutely could not end in divorce, not because he still had feelings for Catherine, but because the Harrison family would never forgive him, and he would face severe professional and social consequences. Put simply, he didn't want a divorce because he feared losing his reputation and the career advantages he had worked so strategically to obtain. Therefore, on one hand, Marcus continued enjoying the professional benefits that his wife and her family provided, while on the other hand he secretly formulated a cruel plan. In his twisted reasoning, if Catherine suddenly died from natural causes, then after an appropriate mourning period, his understanding father-in-law surely wouldn't prevent him from eventually remarrying. After all, everyone dies eventually and young widowers remarry all the time. So Marcus began bringing ketamine home regularly after work, then mixing small amounts into Catherine's coffee or evening tea. According to his calculation, as long as he continued this gradual poisoning, eventually Catherine would die from what appeared to be heart disease, and no one would suspect foul play. This evil behavior continued for nearly 2 full years. However, his mistress Vanessa pressed him more urgently as time went on, threatening that if he didn't divorce soon, their relationship would end. By this point, everyone who knew Catherine was aware that she had been experiencing increasingly severe heart problems over the past 2 years. On November 15 and November 20, 2006, Marcus respectively administered 3 doses of ketamine into his wife's evening coffee. To establish an alibi, after he finished preparing the coffee and giving it to Catherine, telling her to drink it while it was still warm, he hurriedly left for the hospital, claiming he had been called in for an emergency. After consuming the drugged coffee, Catherine quickly became severely ill. In unbearable pain and confusion, she made 3 consecutive phone calls to her husband, but he claimed he couldn't leave the hospital. Having no alternative, she called her father. When Dr. Harrison frantically rushed to his daughter's house, he found that Marcus had already returned before him. He appeared very concerned, sitting beside his wife, but wasn't actually doing anything to help her. Dr. Harrison witnessed this and said sharply, "You're a physician, Marcus. Why aren't you taking any medical measures to help her?" Marcus just mumbled something about not wanting to make things worse. Immediately after, Dr. Harrison took his daughter to the nearest emergency room, but after extensive examination, they still couldn't identify the cause of her symptoms. Fortunately, Catherine ultimately managed to recover both times. After these 2 trial runs, Marcus felt the timing was perfect. At this point, if Catherine died from apparent heart disease, surely no one would suspect anything sinister. Everyone knew she had been struggling with cardiac issues for 2 years. Finally, on Thanksgiving evening, November 23, 2006, while Catherine was preparing their dessert in the kitchen, Marcus placed 5 full doses of ketamine into her coffee, then handed it to his wife with a gentle smile, saying, "Catherine, after you finish your coffee and we have some pumpkin pie, let's take a walk around the neighborhood to look at the holiday lights." When Catherine finished drinking the poisoned coffee, approximately 12 minutes later, she began showing symptoms of severe dizziness, and her heartbeat gradually slowed dangerously. Marcus then helped his wife into their bedroom and laid her down on the bed, while he stood in the doorway watching his wife struggle with death. In her agony, Catherine called out her husband's name multiple times, pleading for help, but he coldly did not respond. According to Marcus's later confession to police, while waiting for his wife to die, he spent more than 3 minutes going to the kitchen to thoroughly wash the cup that had contained the drugged coffee. After Catherine died, he even used that same cup to make fresh coffee for himself. This reveals how extraordinarily cold and calculating his psychological state had become. Around 10:15 p.m., more than an hour after Catherine had fallen critically ill, and only after noticing that his wife was clearly dying, did Marcus finally pick up the phone to call his in-laws and sister-in-law, saying that Catherine's chronic condition had flared up again, and this time it was extremely serious. Rebecca, Catherine's younger sister, knew her sibling had often felt dizzy over the past 2 years but had never had such a severe episode. So initially she wasn't overly alarmed. After making these calls, Marcus began calling for help from neighbors and arranged to have Catherine transported to Seattle Grace Medical Center for emergency treatment. At this time, Catherine's parents were attending a Thanksgiving dinner party at a friend's estate approximately 45 miles away. After receiving the frantic call from their son-in-law, they rushed to the hospital as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, they didn't arrive in time to see their daughter alive one last time. Although Dr. Harrison ultimately couldn't save his daughter, fortunately his extensive experience and medical knowledge enabled him to ensure that the person who killed his daughter would face justice. On February 8, 2007, the King County Superior Court opened trial proceedings to hear Marcus Thornton's case. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Marcus felt the verdict was unjust and appealed. Finally, on August 15 of the same year, the Washington State Court of Appeals issued its final ruling. The original sentence was upheld. Since the case became public, those who knew Dr. Marcus Thornton were profoundly shocked after learning the truth. Many thought he must have suffered some kind of mental breakdown. Beyond their surprise and confusion, everyone also felt a deep sense of violation and fear. Behind such a seemingly perfect person like Marcus Thornton, how could such a monstrous capacity for evil be hidden? When a person is willing to sacrifice everything, including the love and life of their spouse, just to achieve selfish goals and avoid inconvenience, they have not only lost their humanity but also condemned themselves to a life of permanent imprisonment. Dr. Robert Harrison later established a foundation in his daughter's name to support domestic violence awareness and to help people recognize the warning signs of dangerous relationships. He often speaks to medical students about the case, reminding them that the trust placed in physicians comes with sacred responsibility, and that betraying that trust represents one of the deepest forms of evil. Catherine's daughter Emma was raised by her grandparents and is now a practicing attorney specializing in victims' rights. She has never visited her father in prison and has legally changed her last name back to Harrison. As for Vanessa Chin, the mistress who had pressured Marcus to leave his wife, she was never charged with any crime, though she lost her medical license due to the ethical violations involved in the case. She left Washington State shortly after the trial concluded and has never spoken publicly about the affair. The case of Dr. Marcus Thornton serves as a chilling reminder that evil doesn't always announce itself with obvious signs. Sometimes it wears a white coat, speaks with a gentle voice, and hides behind a carefully constructed mask of professional respectability. And that makes it all the more terrifying. Thank you for following this tragic story. If you found this narrative compelling, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future stories. See you next time.